Welcome to Promo Insiders, the ASI Media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry, from hard-hitting news to fun trends and analysis. I'm Theresa Hegel, and today I'm joined by three of my colleagues, Chris Ruvo, Melissa Newman, and Sara Lavenduski. And so today we just wanted to talk it's been a year since the pandemic became a pandemic, since a lot of us were sent home, to work from home. And it was just like a crazy year. So I just kind of wanted to reflect on this past year, see what kinds of things have changed for everyone, and just kind of look forward to what we think might stick. Now that the vaccine is rolling out and things are sort of going back to normal slowly, at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of it. We can talk about that. If you guys are listening and have any comments, stories, questions, things you want to share from the audience, please, feel free to type them in and we'll address them. We love to hear from people too. So anytime, just pipe in. But, you got starting with Chris, you kind of were aware of this pandemic, I think way before anyone else was. We were reporting on this back in January, right? The coronavirus when it was in China, you had your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, it was weird. Michelle Bell, of course, our boss, kind of came to me, I want to say, sometime in late December or January, and said, I'm starting to hear something about this virus thing, over in China, and it might cause some supply chain issues for our industry. You want to look into it? And I was like, yeah, I'll start looking into it. And my gosh, if what a watershed moment that turned out to be in retrospect, right? Yeah. We started doing reporting on it in January. I think it's fair to say ahead of anyone else in the industry, and what started as a supply chain issue and some problems across the globe, within a few months hit home in a very hard way.
Did you ever think that it was going to get this bad? Did you ever think it would hit our shores and happen the way it happened? I mean, I guess it would be hard to
initially right out of the gates, no. And then after a couple weeks, I was like, well, what's stopping a replication of that here? But then I thought, it very admittedly ignorantly, initially was like, well, China, it's a more restrictive society than ours. I think maybe they're going a little overboard with the clamping down and everything on society. And then, I don't think we'd see something like that, here as hard a reaction here. And then, of course, as the reality of what this virus can do started to become clear, and the way it can obviously kill people to the levels that it is, it became clear that it was, I'll say, necessary to take the steps that we're taking, at least initially. And so I guess, no, I didn't anticipate it, but after a few weeks into it, it became clear that that's what we were headed toward. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I feel like the beginning of March, those first few weeks, everything moved so quickly. 1 minute, it was everybody wash your hands for 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it was. And the next thing you know, the office is closed. And I remember it was a big discussion over whether schools were going to close and what was going to happen. I actually, as I recall, one of the last things I was supposed to do, Sara and I were supposed to go to the ballet. Do you remember that, Sara? We were going to go to the ballet in Philly. And I had this actually my niece and nephew, they had their birthday party down in Virginia right before. I was like, well, I don't know if I should go or not, but I'm just going to go. I think it's fine. And that was the last time I left the state. I went down to Virginia for their birthday party. And then I was like, and then on Sunday, I'll just, drive up from Virginia and then go to the ballet. And it probably was a bad idea to begin with, but then it ended up being canceled anyway.
Oh, man.
But it was all these things, you didn't know, things were being postponed, things were being canceled. It was just such chaos. I mean, how about you, Melissa? You just had started at ASI not too long before this happened. How long were you actually in the office?
So I remember my start date because it was a couple of weeks after my birthday on February 12th. So I was like, yes, 29, new year, new job, starting on February 24th. I can't wait. I did axe throwing in Bucks County as a celebration. So that was my last event that I went to before kind of lockdown.
What a way to end it, though.
Yeah, that's right. it was epic. It was so much fun. And I was like, I can't wait to like plan more stuff out like this with my friends in the upcoming spring. So like I had set up some stuff with my friends and then I started, at ASI, I remember having like a meeting with you guys and we were discussing the coronavirus. And I also remember discussing some of the first people who were jumping on branding masks. And we
Yes,
were
I was
talking.
going to bring that up because I remember somebody was talking about it. And we're like, oh, we should do a story on it. And we're like, oh, no, that's so distasteful. We're not going to do that. Like, I
Yeah.
totally remember this conversation. And then, like, a couple months later, it's all we can talk about.
Right. Like we were so on the fence because like we didn't want to seem offensive or like we were capitalizing off of something that, obviously has caused a lot of tragedy in our world, but it's definitely an interesting trend, like the perception. Like I think halfway through last year, there was still a lot of people who were kind of on the fence if, we should be branding PPE and if that was something that our industry should, dive into. But yeah, I think like the 24th. And then I remember Dawn like power walking like into the office. She's like, you're going to get an email from Andy, but don't panic. And I'm like, the way that you're talking to me right now is making me panic. So like, I don't know what Andy's going to talk about. Like, what's going on? And she's like, we're going to go home for 2 weeks, but it's just 2 weeks. So pack everything up. I left like a half-eaten bag of Skittles, but I grabbed like everything else off the desk and then went home.
What an image that is. Like you could do like a whole blog about just around that image of the half-eaten pack of Skittles. It's just like the symbolism of it. Like life stood still in a bag of Skittles.
That's the like, optimism of that bag.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Yeah, I was like, oh, bag. Eventually. And then I think I went in like later mass to grab something else that I had forgot, and I saw them chilling there, and I'm like, yeah, I should just chuck these right now. But like, that was like basically it. And then it's like, us all going kind of back and forth, like especially with admin of like negotiating what the next couple of months was going to look like for all of us. Like, all right, 2 more weeks. Now it's a month. And then everything else that was going on in our lives, like, finagling workloads while also, I am childless, but I know for Chris and for Theresa, you have kids who are schooling at home. It's just like, it was such a wild development, and it seemed like everything happened so quickly and everything was so up in the air. So
yeah, and I mean, I think one of those points is that there was so much uncertainty that whole year, and I think a lot of us, working from home at first was like, okay, this is fine, like it's fine to be just on my couch, but then but there was like an end date. But now it's like it's been a year, and some of us don't want to go back. But I think like Sara just did like a good piece just about like kind of rethinking your home office, because so much of it was just sort of like makeshift. But now that it's long term, we have to kind of think about like what is the most optimal way to work. So can you talk about that a little, Sara, just about what kind of things that you should do and like how you approach the home office?
Yeah, I think like you said, it was kind of like good for now. And I don't know that we ever updated from that. So it was like, well, I just have a free space on the end of this couch, or I'll just work on my island, or I'll just use the corner of this table, and it's like, I don't know that we ever like really went through a time where we were like, all right, like, even though we know that it's going to be a while for a lot of us, it's like, I don't know that we all like made that transition to like making it more permanent. So I think what's important is that, and especially if you have kids, you have dogs, significant others in the house too. I think it's really important to kind of make your own space, like even especially if you've been at the kitchen table for a long time. I think it's good to like there, Chris, like it's good if if it's possible, and not everybody has this flexibility, but if it's possible, maybe you've been kind of like saving the guest room as a guest room, and it's like, okay, probably not going to have a lot of guests over. I think we have to kind of get over that now. So maybe give yourself that room, right? Like, so it's a place where you can like move a small desk, even like, the desks that they have now are made for like small spaces, apartment sized desks, a standing desk would be great, but just kind of putting it into the guest room with a door you can close. And if you have kids, you can say like, dad or mom's on a Zoom call, this is a do not disturb sign. Or if they can't read yet, like green or red, green means knock, red means don't disturb, whatever. And I think, painting the walls a color, like I know it's kind of boring to stare at the same, white walls, or if you have like wallpaper that's been driving you crazy, maybe paint it like a color that you need. Like if you need like a mellowing color because you're high stress, maybe like an aqua or green. If you need a little more energy, maybe yellow or red.
I need
Just
so
kind of
much
spruce it
aqua
up the
green,
place.
Sarah. So much
I know
aqua
that's for
green.
you.
I really
That was your
need
tip.
it.
Like the color of Chris's sweater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and just like putting it like, maybe some wall hangings that kind of bring you, some joy. It's just like little things. And there's so many places you can go. It doesn't have to break the bank. You can go to, there's a lot of discount chains like Home Goods we have around here. That is like so fun, right? And thrift stores have fun stuff.
Oh, Chris left.
Oh no,
He'll be
Chris is
back,
gone.
maybe.
So I think just like, it doesn't have to be huge. Just kind of even like changing your view would help,
Yeah.
you know?
I was gonna say it just can be like little things, but I think it's very easy to have gotten into a rut in the last year because of the very nature of it seeming like it was going to be temporary. I remember our boss saying to us like, "Oh, we'll be back in the office by last summer," and of course we weren't.
Yeah.
But it's just so easy to think, well, it's fine for now, and then all of a sudden a whole year has passed and you're still in the same place, and you're like, well, regardless of whatever's happening in the future, like right now I'm here and this is not ideal, so
Right.
why not just do it, just something, even if it's just like a little potted plant or something to
Right.
change up your view and make it more pleasant and more productive. And here Chris is back again.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened.
Well,
The dogs are in the
that's
room
the
with the
other
router. Maybe they
issue,
had
right?
something.
The unstable internet that
Little
everyone's
ball, like,
deal with.
exited you out.
So just like looking back, we kind of talked about like how everything sort of started and it was like this kind of crazy time, like everything was unknown, but now it's been a year. Like what are some things that you guys think have been like the biggest changes in terms of like office life or social life? Like what are some of the like kind of like the high level changes that have happened? And who wants to start?
Well, I'll jump. I'll always have a problem shutting up, so I'll jump in right away. Beyond the obvious that we're working from home and stuff like that. I think, Theresa, you've hit on this in some of the stuff you've written, or at least some of the stuff we've talked about, and you said is that I always thought I was not introverted, but that I was kind of happy being off on my own. Certainly, as a writer, you spend a lot of solitary time, and I'm fine with that, and I've always kind of been. But I think I realized to what degree I really do want to see people more than I do, and kind of just have that water cooler chat, and so that was maybe like a personal realization that, boy, like I miss that just informal interaction, just popping over to Sara's cubicle and chatting for 5 minutes in the morning about where her next European trip is going to be or something like that. Those little conversations like that you don't get when you're just kind of isolated at home has been such a change to our social dynamic, and I think it's something that everybody's who's in this work from home situation is experiencing for sure.
Yeah, and it's so hard to replicate that in a Zoom meeting, I think. I mean, especially when there's more people involved. Like the four of us, this is not too bad. Like we can all kind of get our words in, and it's pretty informal. But when it's like a Brady bunch of heads or like Hollywood squares or whatnot, it's like everyone has to like wait their turn to speak. It's not conducive to like real conversation. Like you can sort of check in and be like, "Hi, I'm here, I'm working," but yeah, you don't have those kind of like very organic interactions where you kind of spark ideas off of each other. And I don't even know if there is a way to do that, via Zoom. One thing I saw that was kind of interesting, I don't know that I would want to try it because it's kind of weird, but they were talking about how it was some kind of app where it was just audio. It was like basically a virtual office, and you could move your little avatar around, and as you got closer to people, like their sound would get louder. So it was like mimic the office. But like personally, like the one thing I do like is quiet. I like it quiet. So I don't think I would like to hear the office. I like the interactions, but I don't miss other people's noise. So I don't think that would be good for me. But some people said this was like a good way to, I don't know, kind of replicate that.
Is this the Sims?
You know what I could have used that? I could have used that at the beginning. I could have used that at the beginning because having went right from college dorm rooms to like noisy houses and everything like that, to noisy offices working in newsrooms, I realized I've always worked with blaring noise coming into my head. And like when it was like truly quiet, like at the house, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. Like it's like too quiet. I'm like, can hear my own thoughts too much.
Yeah. Oh, I see we have a couple of good some comments. I think Deb Lesha says social life with a question. I know we don't really have a social life right now. I mean, we try. Like I've been doing, like a lot of other people, we've been doing some Zoom calls with like friends from college. My aunt and my mom. My mom lives in Alaska. My aunt lives just in Sellersville, so she's close in Pennsylvania. But we've been doing like art lessons over Zoom. So we like pick a little craft project or art project, and every 2 weeks we'll work on it together via Zoom. So like there's things you can do, but yeah, it's certainly not the same as like going to a bar or a restaurant or a festival or something fun and around other people. But Sarah, what do you think has been like the biggest changes just to the day, like everyone's kind of day-to-day life, work life, whatnot?
Yeah, I think things have become really simple. And I think, people are, it was a jarring change. I remember before we went home, somebody at the office, the day before we were told that we were going to go home, somebody said, I think it's this week we're going to be sent home. And I was like shocked because I hadn't really, it was kind of an insider info thing and I hadn't really felt that way yet. I wasn't ready. And then next day we were told to go home, and for 2 weeks, thank God I took my plant with me just in case, but I think it was very jarring that our lives like overnight became very simple. But I actually think that there's a certain simplicity that people were missing that I think we like. And I know I talked to a distributor back in the summer of 2020, and he said, we service student athletics. That's a huge market for us. And that's obviously been like dead this year. But one thing that we're hearing is that parents are like, we love having sit down dinners every night. We love getting the kids to bed, right? Getting the kids to bed before 9 or 10 o'clock. It's like with all of their sports, and it's like these parents said, for promo sales, I don't know, they're going to feel it, but it's like parents were saying, we're going to make our kids pick and choose now. It's not going to be every single sport under the sun. And every night we're out till 10 o'clock eating McDonald's in the back of the car. Like it's not going to happen anymore. So I think that's simplifying life, I think, is something that was forced on us, but I think people are very attracted to it.
I could speak like to that firsthand because my oldest now is 13, and I've been coaching at least one team every year since he was 3. And then my guy Dylan, who's younger, is he's one of those kids who plays every sport under the sun and coaches teams. And when we didn't know what to do in the evenings initially, we were like, wait, we don't have to like be somewhere for a 5:30 first pitch, or or like for a practice start at 6 o'clock. It was incredible. And my wife really, I think more than most of all, was like, wow, this is amazing. Like I see you guys now in the evening, like we have those family dinners and everything. So she especially has loved it. I think we've all kind of come to like it,
Yep, for sure.
Right. So it kind of made everyone kind of step back and realize we don't need to be this busy, right? Like you're actually reclaiming that quality time, that family time that was missing. Because it seemed like, I think it's another thing where you get into that routine. You think you have to be doing all these things. It's expected, or you expect it of yourself. But now we're like forced to take that step back and like, oh, okay, this is actually a good thing. But I mean, so now, the vaccine is rolling out, slower maybe than we would like, but it is happening. And, some states are opening up, some are, starting to open up a little bit more. So, presumably I'm hoping, that this means that things are going to be somewhat back to normal, sometime this year, or the new normal, or whatever people want to call it. But what do you guys think that's going to look like? I mean, what lessons do you think, do you think people are going to take those lessons that they learned in the last year and carry them through in 2021 and beyond? Or do you think things are just going to go back to the way they were before? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to actually learn from this?
From my personal perspective, I don't think like we'll ever go back to what it was before, because I think like like, not to go deep, but the collective trauma of like the last year for everybody, like there has just been so much heaviness and so much constant change where like everything has been affected, from how we work to like when things started to how we were buying like toilet paper to how people school their children, like to being able to just go hug a friend, or a family member that like doesn't live in your house. So I feel like, I think there's going to be a half of the population that wants to forget that they want to go back to how things are, and then there's the other half of us who, like for myself, like I can't wait until I get vaccinated. Everybody in my house except for me, because I'm low in the order of getting my vaccine, but I definitely, as soon as I can, will get it. But I'm definitely so past, like when people are talking about going out in public spaces, I hope there's still precautions, that it's not like, we're throwing all of that to the wind because we just want to pretend things didn't happen. And then, with new variants coming out and, these shots having their first round going out into the population, how effective will they really be at controlling the spread? So, my hope is we strike a nice balance.
Yeah.
That I get to see my extended family in other states, that I get to see my friends, and not worry about if like I'm endangering their lives or they're endangering mine. And that, if I want to go in and, just like Chris and Sarah were saying, like those little social interactions where it's like, I would be okay with working remote. I'm an ambivert. Like I can be in front of a screen by myself all day. But, it would be nice to talk to real people besides like the plants that I have on my desk, so it's like that kind of stuff, like more social interaction. But I don't think, by the end of the year, things are going to be completely back to normal. That would be lovely. But I just don't think that that's realistic, not to be like Deborah Downer. But
well, no, I mean, and I think the problem a lot of us had like last year was being maybe too optimistic. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's better now to have that more realistic view, maybe even a bit of a pessimistic view, because it'll make us take things more seriously, and then maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised and things will be better. Probably not, but maybe. But as opposed to how everything was last year, where we all thought it was going to be so short and simple, and it wasn't. So like it was just like a constant state of like trauma, like you said, and disappointment, and you know, if we had adjusted our expectations or knew how to do that, then we wouldn't have had to have that double issue of being, upset every time, like it didn't end when we thought it would. But another thing,
I do think with time though, that again, it's going to be contingent on the degree to which we can control spread and how much vaccinations and treatments work, and Melissa mentioned the variants. But there was in the 13th century there was a bubonic plague, right, that wiped out like half the world, right? In 100 years ago there was the Spanish flu, and that killed like 50 million or something. And after a time, from like it did start to progress back to what, obviously we all grew up going to live events, doing things, not wearing masks and stuff. So it seems like the further away you get from the event itself, and the more that we're able to have some degree of normalization, the more people kind of regress to the mean, so to speak. Like the more you get back to just feeling comfortable again doing the normal. So I don't think like this year we're going to be walking around carefree. I hope that people aren't. Like I'm not going to be, not even close. But I do think with time, if we're able to kind of, it becomes another thing that we live with kind of the way flu was for previous generations, where there was no flu vaccination or anything like that. And then that came online, and with time, a lot of people now don't even get their flu shot. They have no interest in it, right? Because they're like, oh, I'll be all right. Like, so it with time away from the event itself, I think it makes the return to normal more, quote, normal, more plausible. But I agree that I don't think it's going to be something right away, nor should it be, in my opinion.
No, this has been a huge life-changing kind of event for everybody.
Yeah.
It's funny. I love how you're bringing like history into this. In the Middle Ages and 100 years ago. But yeah, it is true. Like, obviously we all bounced back from that, and nobody was thinking about the, we don't think about the plague all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like childbirth.
Well, I mean, I do.
Like, if you remembered the pain of childbirth, you probably wouldn't have another kid. But people do all the time. So
yeah.
I didn't, but I only have one.
Yeah.
It's not because of pain. It's the pain after they're born. That's my issue.
Makes things so complicated.
Anyway, okay, that's kind of getting off track, but yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm curious about masks too, because like, how long will those be a thing when people, like, will it be normalized when people are sick maybe and have to go out, just in the future? Like, my dad, he's like, he loves masks. He's thrilled about it. He's like, I have not gotten sick all year. Like, I didn't get any colds. He's like, I'm going to wear them forever now. I know a lot of people are not going to be like that. My dad's a little weird, but I could see that. Like, people, like, it used to be like so strange to see someone wearing a mask, in public. But I wonder if this is going to normalize it at all. Not all the time and not for all people, but maybe for time, maybe during flu season, maybe there will be people that take extra precautions, or people that get sick will wear them, as a courtesy. I mean, obviously they've been a very controversial issue for a lot of people, but there have been a lot of people that wear them and, have noticed that they did not get sick. So I'm just curious, like, whether there'll be like more of a market for that in the future.
I'm in the camp of I like wearing them just because you have a face like mine. You're happy to cover it in any way that you can, but no, kidding aside, it's I agree with your dad in the sense that it's been great. I haven't been getting sick or anything like that. It's cool, but in terms of like mass society, like where we live, we're not the most restrictive in the country by any means, but we're definitely on the more restrictive side of things. We have my wife and I relatives in southern states who where it's a lot less restricted, and people are already predicted, like in Florida, already, like, they're not being worn, and that's becoming more and more a norm. So I do think, again, as we get farther away from this, like the horror really of this last year, and I think it moves back toward people not wearing them as much. And I'm not saying right away, but I don't think it's something that's like long
it's
term.
not going to become the fashion. Because I mean, like, in a lot of like Asian countries, it's not unusual to see people wearing them, but for us it always has been, and it would be interesting to see if that stigma could be gotten rid of long term. But I think you're probably right that it probably won't, but maybe for some people it will change their minds.
For sure.
Well, I think like we kind of covered a lot of stuff with this, but do you guys, do any of you have anything else you wanted to add about like what you think this next year is going to hold, or things that you're hopeful for going forward?
Well, I think, I had a conversation yesterday with a distributor who just said, I know that a lot of people don't love like the virtual trade shows, the hybrid trade shows. It's just not the same as being in person. And, we both agreed that, as much as it's not what we want, we're going to have to adjust to that. And I think even when COVID is completely gone, companies will have seen how much money they've saved not sending people to trade shows and not sending people to events. Just the flights, the hotel, it just all adds up, right? So if you can send fewer people, or if you can just do virtual or hybrid events, I think that's the way companies are going to go. So I think it's just, we're going to see a huge adjustment in how companies are allocating funds and how they're using their people to do the work.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, I don't love virtual events either, which actually I just wrote a commentary about my love-hate relationship with them. But yeah, there's definitely something missing from being in person and actually being able to interact. But there are some positives. Like, like one of the things I said was just that you're basically in a front row seat. If you're at the keynote, like, you get to see and hear this person perfectly. It's not like there's no tall person, blocking your view. You're not in the back of the auditorium. You're right there, and you can often like ask your questions and get them answered. So there are some good points, but yeah, it's definitely at least something to be desired. But I think that like so many things with the pandemic pushing like the technology forward, I think it's pushed the technology for these virtual events forward, and they're going to just get better and better. And I don't think they'll ever fully replace in-person events because we, as like social creatures, we like to be around other people, but it does making them more, accessible and better technology, that's going to be a good thing just to give more versatility. So, right. And that's another, as Brad Bronstater says, one thing with these virtual events, you can't touch the products. You can't see how they work. That's one of the big drawbacks is how do you like feel a sample? Like how do you see like how soft that shirt is, or how do you see how well that equipment is going to work? Or like I went to CES this year, which was, all virtual. These people, these tech companies have so many like crazy, prototypes and all this stuff. And how, like, if you can't actually try it or see it in person, like you can do a lot of things with video. I don't know that actually works just because you say, just because you have this demo video. If I can't like actually see what this thing looks like in person, it's really hard to kind of vouch for it or write about it. So for sure, like that in person, see it with my own eyes kind of feeling is really important.
I think for product driven industry like ours, I think the and really any product driven industry where you're really dealing with physical things, I think the long term prognosis for trade shows is actually quite good. I think for in-person trade shows, I should say, I do think that there's a desire for among a lot of people to go back to them. That said, I do think going forward, virtual will be a significant component of the trade show where that genie's not going back in model by any means. But I actually of late even have become more optimistic about a return to how live events will fare, particularly trade shows. And just kind of looking ahead, like more generally, this is something I was trying to keep in mind myself as we were talking about, sales are down in the promotional products industry, and it was 20% year over year. We're still almost a $21 billion industry last year. With now granted, PPE for sure played a significant role in keeping the number as high as it was, but it was still almost a $21 billion industry. That's better than it was several years ago. So it's still it's when everything was quote normal. So it's still an industry in which you have companies generating a lot of money even under dire circumstances. Yeah. And I do think everything that we're seeing, in the news now, the reports from, how the vaccination effort is going, how the vaccinations are even able to handle certain variants. Barring an emergence of a variant that the vaccines just can't address and a huge explosion again of case counts, I actually think things are going to get a lot better this year for our industry and for your for sectors that were super hard hit last year, like hospitality, travel, air flight, whatever. You guys know the ones that are really bad. And I think when those industries start to pick up, and we're already starting to see some of it, that's going to bode well for promo. And I think you could potentially see a really good second half of the year. I don't think it's pie in the sky. It's not just hopeful thinking. I'm a realist, and just a lot of the economic indicators are there that if the vaccines stay on course and there's not this huge blindside from a variant of COVID, that we can really see a super strong bounce back that'll be for our industry and for the economy. So I'm actually kind of more hopeful than I've been in a long time.
Coming from you, Chris, someone that I know is pretty pessimistic. That's great news to hear. So, I like to hear that.
True.
One last thing I wanted to mention is, I don't know if it's really on topic, but I think another good thing for our industry in particular is this last year, like that, there's been kind of that focus on, merch. Merch has been getting so much bigger just in general, but I've seen so many stories about like, how merch is being used to kind of save industries, like clever t-shirts, clever merch. I mean, like it's becoming a bigger and a bigger thing for brands, and that can only be a good thing for our industry, right? Like people, wanting to like rep, I don't know, like Stofers or whatever ridiculous brand it is, like
or their favorite YouTuber or their favorite influencer,
exactly.
Stuff like that. Seriously,
Yeah, I mean, like it gets so niche. Like there's an article that just came out, I think, in the Atlantic that was all about like t-shirts during the pandemic. It was actually really good, so you guys should read it. Not that I'm trying to, advertise for another magazine, but it was interesting.
And Theresa wrote that on a freelance basis.
I wish. but yeah, but it was all about like, all the different types of like weird niche t-shirts that she bought during the pandemic, like things that were like catchphrases from podcasts or, I can't even describe it, but it was good. And I think it's a good trend for our industry if that's what people are doing. I mean, like, like anything that's merch or a t-shirt or promo product related, like it's got to be good for us. So
totally agree.
Okay, well, this was a good discussion, guys. I mean, hopefully we'll see each other in the actual office again someday. I'm hoping not all the time because I do like being at home.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I do miss you guys too a little bit. Just a smidge. But no, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me about the anniversary, this kind of dire anniversary, and hopefully by the end of the year things will be a little bit better. And thank you guys, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Theresa Hegel, and this was Promo Insiders.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.